Hi there, I am Bonnie McCaffery, and thank you so much for coming back for another VidCast. I'm in Bloomington, Indiana, at the Indiana Heritage Quilt Show, and there's a gallery downtown that I happened to go in on one of my lunches, and I saw some really creative work by Jacqueline Chiddister. Jacqueline, thank you so much for coming and talking about your quilts. I really loved your quilts, and actually as I walked around I began to be able to say, oh, I'll bet that's one of Jacqueline's, and that's one of Jacqueline's, because they're really wonderful.
Thank you.
I love the dimension that you get. You have a piece, the African mask mola piece.
Yes.
How do you do the dimension in that?
I have it mounted on a stretched canvas.
Yeah, I did notice
and
that
I
it was.
painted the border.
Yeah, it's kind of layered, isn't it?
It's
like a layered quilt,
Yes.
and then the mounted canvas.
Yes.
Yeah, really interesting. I also noticed in your Floribunda piece, those flowers are just gorgeous. They look like they could be real flowers.
Those were made by fusing 2 layers together, 3 layers with the fusing in the middle. And then I did a satin stitch around the edges and curled the petals.
You did curl. So what did you use as the fusible in the center?
I think it was Steam-a-Seam.
Steam-a-Seam,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. And then curled it?
Yes.
Do you use heat to curl
yes.
it? Yeah.
I used steam and I sort of curled it around my finger so that it gave it dimension.
Oh, yeah.
Well, not while I was steaming it, but after I steamed it.
I'm thinking that wouldn't be good.
No. After I steamed it, and then I would either use a pencil or my finger, depending on the temperature.
Right. And then my favorite dimensional piece was the one with the leaves hanging in the window, Wind Song.
I just wanted to try something different.
Yeah.
And the idea came to me to let the leaves blow in the breeze. So what I did was stitch down the middle of the leaf, where the stem would be, and I left the thread long, the tail of the thread long. And then I did a satin stitch all around the leaf. They were fused also.
Right.
And then I couched that long tail on the background and beaded it as I couched.
Yes. Now, what kind of sewing machine do you sew on?
I have 8 different sewing machines.
She has 8 sewing machines. Oh my gosh.
Probably a Bernina.
Okay.
I use the Bernina the most.
Yeah, I love it.
I have 3 Berninas. So presently.
Yeah, just 3. Yeah, they're pretty good.
They're wonderful.
Now, you do add a lot of beading on your pieces. I saw that there was some dangling beads on this particular piece here. These are dangling on there, and so they're just extending out of the dimensional flowers.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I just simply string them and attach them.
Right.
And then do the next one until I have what I think is appropriate.
Yeah. And I love how you add beading as a textural element even in the background of your piece. Well, actually in the prayer quilt I noticed there was clusters in the center of that.
Mm-hmm. The reason, I decided to bead it in the center because the quilting pattern ended up looking like a cross.
And the one I was talking about with the background clusters, too many balls in the air. You did beading as a back. It's not like it was the main element. It was just a subtle texture in the background.
I think I'd like to put more beads on that quilt.
I bet you're always thinking,
I think I need some more on that quilt.
Now, in Purple Passion, what I noticed, it wasn't just random beads. It was a little bit more structure because you would have dots of seed beads and then you would have dots of bugle beads in an ordered way.
Yes, it is fairly ordered on that piece. And I happen to have a passion for purple.
And, Poppy Grandeur. Now that, you really did some neat beading in the center there. There was black, a lot of black, large, I don't know that they're seed beads.
No, they're very large, jet black bead in the center, and then the gold bugle beads around it.
It just stunning. I love that.
It was fun.
Yeah. Oh, opulence. You had lines of beads kind of swirling. The beads were forming a line over the surface.
Oh, I have to tell you, those are scraps also. Part of it is, the middle of the block is not a scrap. It's a Cape facet fabric, I believe. And the rest of it is scraps from another quilt.
You do some really neat things with your scraps.
Well,
I
have scraps that tiny.
And one of my other favorites was the Glory quilt.
I love that quilt. I finished that quilt last year when I was recuperating from knee surgery, and that's one of my favorite quilts.
What kind of thread do you use for your beading?
Well, I've tried different types. I've used a beading thread, but it tends to fray, I think, even though it's strong. So I end up often using a very strong quilting thread to bead.
Interesting. Yeah. Now you're holding a piece on your lap. What's the name of this piece?
Garden in the Sun in French, Jardin du Soleil.
Ooh,
Jardin du Soleil. It was in this show last year and won a prize.
Oh, congratulations.
Thank you.
I'm not surprised because your work is really beautiful.
Other than the flowers, well, they're my design too. However, I learned to make them from Kumiko Sudo's fabulous, one of her books,
right.
Fabulous Flowers.
Yeah.
But the entire quilt is my design.
It is stunning.
And actually, I quilted some of the fabric before the backing was attached.
Oh,
and then I quilted more.
Yeah.
Actually, I bead before the backing is attached, usually. Not always.
Wow.
And then I put the backing on and quilt more. Quilt around.
Do the beads get in the way when you're doing quilting?
These were put on afterwards.
Okay, so some you put on after, some before.
Yes, and sometimes I will space them so that I can quilt between them.
Right, right.
Or around them. Generally, though, if I want them scattered all over, I'll put them on afterwards, and you have to float your thread between the layers.
Right, right. Wow. And you have another quilt hanging in the show.
Yes. Bohemian Beauty.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And I appliqued a vine and made dimensional flowers to put on it and beaded.
And this other quilt over here.
I saw a painting in Nashville, Indiana, in the Brown County Art Guild that I thought was wonderful. And it was an autumn scene, very much like that one. So I called the artist up and I asked for permission to make a quilt that looked a lot like his painting, and he gave me permission. His name is David Dale. And yesterday he came to see it.
Do you teach quilting? How about that?
Yes, I do. I started teaching, at university level, apparel design, interior design, and I also have a background in textiles and textile design. So
interesting. So that does come through to your quilts.
Yes, it does. Yeah. I've taught for one quilt shop here in town that's no longer in existence, and I will be teaching for our new quilt shop.
And what's the name of that shop?
It's Shisa Quilts.
Shisa Quilts, and they're in
Bloomington, Indiana.
Okay.
And they have wonderful fabrics.
Yeah.
And Bernina sewing machines.
All right.
They're Bernina dealers, so it's going to be fun.
Yeah.
We're going to have a fabric art club so that every month we'll be teaching new techniques with different instructors coming, and I'm coordinating the classes.
That's so
that
cool.
We'll have a variety of people teaching, and I'll be teaching. I get to do my favorite thing.
Yeah. Oh. Jacqueline, do you have any patterns or books that you've published?
I haven't published a book. I probably should do that, but I do have patterns that I have designed and have made available through several quilt shops in the past. And they will be available through Shisa Quilts.
Excellent, excellent.
And there's a website that people can go to
Wonderful.
Contact Shisa.
Okay. Let me throw you a little curve.
Okay.
What's your life philosophy?
My life philosophy. Well, one thing I say is life is too short to go through it in neutral. That's why I have color in my life.
Yes.
Of course, you'll sometimes need a neutral background, but I have to have color.
Yeah, I love color.
I like to surround myself with beautiful things, colors, music, books.
Yeah. Oh,
so,
it's a great philosophy. Yeah. Jacqueline, thank you so much for doing this interview with me. I've really enjoyed looking at your quilts.
Well, thank you so much for doing this.
They're wonderful.
Thank you for your appreciation.
Well, you can't help but appreciate them because they're just beautiful.
Thank you.
And thank you all for joining me, and I hope you'll come back next month and see what I have for you then. Thanks for being with me.